Hello YouTube, this is Morgan Airspeed Prime here with my next Boruto Anime review. This one's going to be for episode 176, which is called Blockade the Aeun Gate. Not sure about the pronunciation there, but blockading the entrance to the Leaf Village, basically. So this was an interesting episode because obviously I think a lot of people were sort of worried coming off the last episode with how amazing it was that, oh, are we going to go straight into a much weaker episode here? But thankfully, I don't really feel that happened. Yes, this episode, you'd never say was as good as the previous one, but it definitely wasn't a huge drop in quality. This was still a very fun and enjoyable episode that focused on some pretty interesting ideas and was definitely a nice sort of like epilogue to the arc we just had, while still keeping the kind of plot threads open, given that we know we're setting up the next manga arc shortly. And so scenes like the Victor scene right towards the end, dealing with sort of Naruto as a focus throughout the episode was really good to see, and just addressing the whole idea of, okay, Kara is this organization that realistically has people connected to them as outers from all of the nations. How do we handle that given how dangerous they seem to be? So the main focus of this episode is, should Naruto blockade the village? Should he shut off basically people being able to enter or exit the village to increase the security in the village to avoid problems? And he gets the report from Konohamaru. They figure out the whole, okay, outer Kara, they get the whole plan about the Divine Tree, the report about the mission that's just happened. But then Shikamaru and the others are like, we have to increase security, don't we? And so Naruto asks for a day to consider this. And most of the episode is Naruto going around the village and getting a look at the sort of positives and negatives of the sort of situation they find themselves in. Of like, now that they have more of a kind of open policy of like not being as, thorough with their security searches of letting people in and out. Obviously that means the connection between the nations is increased. But if they're potentially letting in Kara members, it is dangerous. And so you get him like encountering Kakashi, who's fishing, and he catches a fish and he reveals that, oh, this is a non-native fish. Like, basically, this is only here because we've allowed that enhanced connection with the other nations. So we're seeing the positivity of the sort of more interconnected world that we have here in this era of peace, where we have situations like the Leaf Village being able to send out a messenger to all of the other nations to inform them of an equally as great threat, that there is now a friendship between all of the nations and they will accept a messenger from the Leaf Village to all of them. That was really good to see, of just like that wouldn't necessarily have been possible in the past, like during Naruto or Naruto Shippuden. That would have been a much more tense situation, but now it's clearly there is a trusted situation going on here, that like Tamari is married to Shikamaru, so there's a connection between the sand and the leaf. Choji, of course, has a connection to the cloud, so he goes there. They have those like specific connections through people living in different villages now, and that's really good to see. He does, of course, see that, like, okay, the people at the gate, because there is so many people coming in and out, just for the sake of time, they can't do a full security search on everyone. So there's a sense of like, okay, we have to just let people in because we have to trust them during this era. And that's the main sort of point of like, does he view that as being as much of a threat as he thinks it is? And he ultimately decides by the end to not do that, to not blockade the village, that it's all about being interconnected, and they can't sort of, I suppose, just live in fear. That chakra is about connecting things, and we have to keep that going during this era. And I like that the thing that really pushed him over the edge was he comes across what like Boruto, Denki, and everyone is doing, which is that Denki is performing an experiment to test out sort of longer range wireless technology, which they have short range wireless, but they want to be able to do it to a point where people in the Leaf Village can talk to people from other villages. Basically, worldwide connection is the overall goal. And so we have this situation where they send up, Metal and Iwabe in a hot air balloon, and they're going to basically send a wireless signal bouncing off the balloon, and then get it to a village sort of on the outskirts of the Leaf Village, so the kind of longest range they can test right now. And I thought this was actually really cool to see, of just like, it makes sense, Denki expanding the technology, and that he also wants that sort of interconnectedness, that through some of the dialogue from the other characters, they're also talking about like, I hope one day we can talk more easily with people from the land of iron, and so on. So that was I think a fun little connection to have, of just that the kind of youth of the village also want things to be more interconnected, and he sees them all working together to make this happen because they value this goal just as much as anyone else, and that's really what makes the decision for him. So I thought that was really cool. It was just fun to see most of the Genin sort of working together, of just like them all being pulled off at the end by the hot air balloon, which is seemingly about to kind of crash land, and it's a little bit out of control, and Naruto just watches on, even though he probably could solve that like effortlessly, but that's what they were going for. So the whole Naruto side of the episode I actually quite enjoyed. Was it the most impactful thing ever? But I actually appreciate them bringing up this topic of like, this is a security concern. Naruto ultimately needs to make the decision, and he makes the decision to basically not have them live in fear. They're going to continue the investigation into Kara, of course, and they're going to be a little bit more on alert, but they're not going to ruin sort of the positive benefits that being more connected has allowed them to accomplish. Then, kind of surprisingly for this episode, they do cut to the leader of Kara here, Jigen, of course. Again, I forget if the anime has revealed his name or not. I don't think his name particularly is important. So we have Jigen talking to Victor, who is, of course, revealed to be alive. People who've read the manga obviously knew that this was going to be the case. And so the situation we have here is that Victor is pinning the whole incident on Deepa, who of course is dead, and he's talking about how like I made sure to get all of his remains, they haven't discovered our secret. So obviously that confirms to us that there's something about the Kara members. The reason they're so powerful is something to do with their bodies, that if the Leaf Village was allowed to research one of their bodies, they discover what the situation is. So that's kind of interesting. We also see that Victor inquires about the vessel, which is a kind of big kind of plot point here that we're going to get into. So that was really fun to see brought up here. And basically Victor leaves and reveals now that, okay, things are kind of going wrong a bit here. He's sort of lost control of the situation. He was basically responsible for what happened here. So he is now going to turn the tides apparently against Jigen by trying to take the vessel for himself. So that's kind of interesting. And then we have Jigen talking to Victor about like his wish. Do you really think your wish will come through going about things this way? So, just a sense for more inside the organization and how it works. That it already feels like Jigen is sort of done with Victor, and Victor is also seeing that as well. So this is actually a decent setup for what happens with Victor in the manga. So I'm glad that there's more detail being gone into here, because like I think people who've only watched the anime would be very surprised to find out just the extent of Victor's involvement in the manga. This is really, really fleshing out the character a whole lot more, and it's going to make what happens all the more impactful. But yeah, I think that's most of what I want to talk about with this episode. Like I said, I think they did a good job at making what was obviously going to just be a less impactful episode than the last one. still very interesting, but stemming off the last one and still setting up what's going to happen next. So I think it is still a few more episodes before we potentially get into the manga arc, but the anime I think has been on a pretty good run of late, so I have confidence that they're gonna keep it going, but there's always that sense that we'll get that more fillery style episode, but typically they never have complete terrible episodes. So hopefully the quality continues, but that's been my thoughts on the episode. In the comments, let me know what your thoughts were, but that's been the video. Thanks for watching, and bye.